to another episode of Rail Industry Connected. I'm Dan Clark, and thank you for joining us. The skill shortage in the industry is a key theme that we've highlighted that we think will be a major talking point in the rail in 2025. While we've spoken to managing directors from an infrastructure perspective in previous episodes, today we talk to a company transforming the way that train drivers are introduced into the industry. The Rail Academy, founded and led by industry leader Cath Bellamy, has a strong team of driver and guard trainers and assessors to help the industry benefit from more train drivers. A registered ORR examination centre, the organisation is approved to provide non-apprenticeship driver training and assessments and is approved by OFQUAL to deliver endpoint assessments for trainer driver level 3 apprenticeships. According to the government, many train drivers are set to retire within the next 5 years, with the average age of the driver being just 48 years old. Today, we learned about the Rail Academy's unique approach, the difference it's making so far, and the journey it's made so far to where it is today. Cath, thank you for coming on. Welcome, and thank you very much.
Hi, Dan. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So, the Rail Academy, as we've just introduced there, completely unique prospect. Usually, these kind of assessments and what have you go through the talks. So, please give us a breakdown of what you deliver and why you felt there was a gap in the market for a business like this.
Happy to, Dan. So have been in the industry now for over 30 years. And for the majority of that time, I've either been working as part of an operating team or leading an operating team or working on behalf of the government, leading and driving what they want from operators across the UK. And as a result of that experience, I've been able to spot quite a number of areas where, frankly, I think that the private sector can help the rail industry right across the UK solve some really rather serious headaches. Traditionally, the training and assessment of very important frontline roles, which includes train drivers, but not exclusively, certainly platform dispatchers, anybody that is involved with frontline operating safety, has been carried out internally, and that's been the case for all sorts of reasons, and that includes the fact that it's highly regulated. It's very important to get right, and actually not just anybody can do it really well. So about 4 years ago, I started on a little adventure, which was setting up the Rail Academy. The first 2 years were quite quiet. It was part of an operating company which I'd set up with a colleague. But in the last 2 years, we've been really working hard to offer the industry a new set of services which it needs. And from what I can see, it's enjoying using. And that includes focusing very much on providing qualified, experienced, positive assessors and trainers in many of the operating fields, but specifically train driving. You've mentioned already in your introduction that the average age of train drivers is increasing. 48 as an average age probably gives you a good idea that the industry is already facing an increase in demand for new people to come in and pick up from that experience, for these guys and girls to pass the baton on to the next generation of train drivers. So we can help with actually finding really good candidates, but also to train them. We have been approved, just like any rail operator out there who can train drivers by the ORR to very rigorous standards, which means that we can train them from start to finish in any way that the client needs us to help. And we can do that in-house. If people are comfortable with their materials and how they do it, they just need a helping hand. Or we can take that responsibility and that worry away from operators and train their drivers and operating staff away from their site in specialist areas that we know about, that we found we're comfortable delivering training in.
I think it's really interesting to say, this has been a 4-year project for you so far. What's changed in those last 2 years for it to obviously get to the place where it is today?
I think the pace of change out in the industry is actually just accelerating. When I look back over the last sort of 30 years of employing train drivers, the relationship between the trade unions and the rail operators has always been close, and it's always been a joint venture to identify what train drivers are needed and how the company is going to go about doing it. And both parties making sure it's being done to standards that they feel very important about. But what I think has changed is certainly the rapid changes in service requirements. You know, how many services are people going to run? COVID enforced massive change on the industry and reduction. And then suddenly, guess what? Passengers are coming back to the railway, freight is coming back to the railway. All of that means that people have got to get train services increased. That means more drivers, more operators quickly. And these people are really skilled staff. The recruitment, selection, and training of these people requires good planning. Deciding now that you need to have new services in 12 months' time means you're probably already 3 months too late in recruiting for those staff. So, forward planning is essential. And actually, you need resources like us to be able to respond to what companies are being asked for, really well ahead of the game.
And I think when you look at the shortage of assessors, definitely in the industry, even across from an infrastructure perspective as well, it can come across quite a premium for a lot of companies as well to be able to bring those assessors in and obviously deliver what they need to. And on short notice, as you say, sometimes that can be quite, the cost can be quite huge. So I think what's unique about your business and what sounds fantastic is obviously you've got a dedicated team of trainers and assessors there that are highly skilled, highly qualified to be able to deliver something like this. How have you been able to acquire that team over this period of time?
Well, that's an interesting point because when I started out on this journey, I actually thought that one of the biggest challenges for our business to grow was going to be to acquire um, training and assessors that frankly met my standards, which are extremely high, and b who actually could go in, that were flexible enough and adaptable enough to go into different workplaces, deal with different materials, and smart enough to go out on stage in training and delight our customers and actually give learners a fantastic experience and get even more excited on the start of their career. But when I started looking, and one or two drivers started to kind of put their toe in the water with the Rail Academy, and I started to get three or four really good people. I was reminded that train drivers are a very close knit community. And as soon as people came to start working with us, as soon as they started to really love it, they were introducing people. So just as I'm getting customers through recommendation from my customers, I'm actually getting fantastic staff who are being recommended by my staff. So we've got a team now of around 15 really good driver trainers and assessors who have come to me almost exclusively through recommendation of my own people. And if my staff are prepared to recommend their friends, their colleagues to me, I know they're worth interviewing. And that's a promise I give them back. So at the moment, I've got a fully occupied team of 13, 14 driver assessors and instructors, a combination of full time and part time. And looking forward to 2025, I'm hoping to be able to draw off the waiting list that we've also got. So actually, we're in a really good place.
I think that's fantastic as well, especially when we talk about the shortage of assessors that there are. And I think the benefit that you do have is it shows, I always shows it's a measure of the workplace when you've got people that work for you that recommend it to their friends because they wouldn't do so if it wasn't a good place to work. So obviously it seems like you've got a formula there that is working, especially not only from, a delivery perspective, but actually from the people delivering it as well. Um, Obviously anything it going new into the industry, something that's a little bit different to the norm, in rail especially, can be very challenging. What challenges have you faced over the last 4 years or so, and how have you got to where you are today? How have you overcome those?
Well, it's interesting actually, because the first thing I would say is that hiring trainers in from the private sector to support driver training, particularly, is not a new thing. It's been happening quietly for quite a long time, but most of those people are either one man bands, or small cottage businesses. I don't think anybody has really looked at this and thought this is a service that is going to really grow in demand, and we need to create a business that can scale up. And that's what we intend to do, to be able to serve multiple different companies with lots of different staff. That's not to say there aren't challenges. As a small business, and we are a small business, um, getting heard, getting noticed, getting people to pay attention is always a challenge when you don't have a lot of money to be able to do that. In some ways, I'm fortunate because people know who I am. I hope they know that I'm very focused on operational standards, safety, and customer service, and that they can trust me. So that's a really positive thing. But nevertheless, getting into people and HR teams, training teams, finance directors who don't know me is a challenge, as all SMEs. But I'd also say that some of the big challenges for doing what we do is actually the barriers of entry to get into providing training and assessment in specialist areas. It's taken us a good part of 18 months just to get through the significant stages and hurdles that OFQUAL, for example, set to make sure that we are an organisation that can be trusted by the government to deliver specialist assessments for their apprenticeships. And we've got that. The average pass rate, by the way, is on your fourth attempt. So that gives you an idea of how long lots of people are out there. We got it on our second, so I was really pleased with that. But
That's
also,
great news.
as an employer of safety critical staff, and having had my head on the block with delivering um, services, I know that the regulator needs to be very satisfied before they're ever going to say, yes, this is an organisation that we trust and we have audited and checked to be able to train any operating member of staff. But we've done it, and the ORR have signed us off.
And that's the main thing. I think when you're in such a safety critical environment, you understand that there are these barriers in place. But obviously, as you say, it's quite intrusive. I think the fact that you've said there that it takes 4 times to kind of get through that process is it's hard, and you can see why many SMEs would kind of give up at that point, or
Well,
anyone that kind of
absolutely.
involved.
Because
Yeah,
if a small business doesn't have a line of income and it's got lots of costs going out, um, that's a tense time for any small business. But we've done it, we've achieved it, and as a business, we're growing. And that's all about my staff, my team going out with clients who love having them there, continue to use them, and recommend them to other people. And that's the name of the game for us as we go forward.
it's quite obvious that you've got the basic principles right for an SME there as well. You know that's a very simple formula when you break it down like that, but it obviously works, and congratulations for performing in that way. It's fantastic to hear. I think for anyone looking to do things a little bit different in the industry, so we do see a lot of innovation coming into the industry nowadays. For them to win work like you have here, what would you give to them as advice?
I suppose rather boring, but the most important lesson I was ever taught when I go back to my mid-20s is that to be able to grow and sell your product, you first of all got to believe in it yourself. And secondly, be prepared to put your hand in your pocket and pay good hard cash for it, because that's what you're asking your clients to do. So focus on your market, make sure that there are customers out there. You might believe that they are, but make sure there are, and then define a product very simply focused on what they want and deliver it every single time.
Very salient advice there. Thanks, Kath. So, obviously, you are part of a cog that is addressing the skills challenge as a whole. With such an aging workforce, we've already talked about the average age of the train driver, for example. How do you see rail as a whole combating this challenge? I mean, we aren't as a whole an overly attractive industry, are we? It's quite it's well, I don't know actually. Saying that the train driver side of things has always been it's something that I wanted to do as a child. So maybe a little bit different. But how do you see rail combating this challenge as a whole?
Well, it's funny that you say that the rail industry isn't that attractive. I have never felt like that. And in fact, if you switch off mainstream media that continually tell us that we're not an attractive industry and look
Yeah,
at the opportunities and the growth within the industry, I think, particularly with a shift towards encouraging developing practical skills as opposed to just academic achievements, the rail industry offers a fantastic world. You can literally do anything you want, whether you want to be an engineer, you want to drive trains, you want to be in marketing. This is a wonderful industry to be part of. But it's been an industry that has been through lots of change. And there's also been a lot of experience lost from the industry. So I think one of the challenges that the industry's got is not just filling empty seats in jobs with bodies who are skilled and experienced to do it, but to ensure that there is the development involved, the fact that people who are experienced, there are lots of us out there, are encouraged and relied on to help people that don't have that experience. And also, in a slightly old fashioned way, again, making sure that people are offered careers. So if you come in and you start as a train dispatcher, or you're a shunter on a depot, or you're selling tickets, but you have a dream to become a director or a train driver, that there are steps in place for you to be able to do that. And all of that requires foresight, planning, development, and training. And that is something that we can help with going forward. If people that are there to do it now are just overwhelmed by the everyday task of sending out their trains every day safely and on time. And that's where the private sector can help, not just us, but others. And we come as a friend to the industry. The industry's been very good to me. It's brought me up, it's given me a home, and it's allowed me to grow and develop in the way that I want to. And one of the things I love doing now is being able to help others follow their journey through the industry, through the Rail Academy. And that's kind of a nice legacy that I would personally like to leave.
lovely thought there. How did you get into the industry in the first place, Kath? I think a lot of us stumble upon it sometimes, but not necessarily maybe a focus. But was it a focus for you as a younger person?
No, I was extremely unfocused as a young person. In fact, I was born abroad, so I didn't sit on a train until I was about 14 years old. I hadn't even been on a train, so it wasn't part of. I grew up on a tropical island, believe it or not, in my first few years, just off Singapore. So trains weren't big over there. But when I left, I didn't really want to go to college, to be honest. I've never really been an academic, and I find it quite a challenge to take in information through reading. So I've always been far more of a person who likes to get her hands on things, learn by doing, learn by experience and from others around me. So when I kind of got through my degree, which I did, which I got a decent result, but frankly, I didn't enjoy it, and I got through with the skin of my teeth. I was looking for somewhere that I could have the kind of career that I wanted. And the rail industry was one of probably two or three industries that I applied for because I could see that was exactly the sort of home that someone like me could find. And there's
Mm.
lots of people out there that either can't afford now or don't want to go to university or college can have very, very successful careers through apprenticeship, training and development on site, and achieve their dreams. So do it. Just do it. But be prepared to work hard, because you only get to the top by working hard.
Without a doubt. And obviously going forward, you'll be working hard for that from a rail academy perspective. What does that look like in the next few years? What's the aims?
Well, I'm not very good at sitting still, and I'm I'm also one for lots and lots of ideas. But there are two areas which I can see we can get involved with and help people. And lots of these things I discover along my journey into driver training. And one of them is how desperately overwhelmed recruitment and selection teams are in finding suitable candidates for jobs in the time that's available. And having been in a rail operator, I'm all too familiar with HR teams getting grumpy with operators who suddenly say they need drivers tomorrow, and then operators grumping and grinding because HR teams have given them candidates that they wouldn't necessarily have chosen themselves. And there's got to be a solution to this. And I think it's about working with organizations that have got headspace and time like us to help plan that succession planning, in this day and age, to get systems in place which can turn what is often thousands of applications for every vacancy that is advertised for a train driver into a sensible, manageable shortlist of perhaps 12 or 24, um, and to test those candidates sensibly and present to clients candidates that we know can do the job. We're talking to lots of organizations who would like to help us in that. We're developing software systems, and we're dealing with a small psychometric testing center who wants to be our psychometric testing partner. So in 2025, one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to offer the industry a brand new way of sourcing, selecting, and testing train drivers. All to the standards that are required, obviously, but in a far more cost effective, time effective way. The second thing I'm looking at is one step further. How can the Rail Academy help the industry by creating a national talent pool? Trade unions have made it very clear to me they don't believe in private funding of training. I hear that, I understand that, and that this doesn't need to be private sector funding. But why can't an organisation like us potentially take the risk rather than other companies in developing teams of people with the right skills to be able to offer the industry in the quantity and volume and at the time that they want and to the standards that they want? So I'm looking at that. And of course, we're also looking at how we can expand the endpoint assessments that we offer the rail industry, so that employers can offer all the staff within their frontline operations apprenticeships, ways of gaining qualifications through practical endeavours, not just academic. As I've previously said, that's important to me because it's how I felt when I was starting out. But not everyone does well in a classroom. That doesn't mean that they're not going to do well in the industry. Some of them will be absolutely outstanding. And if we can help them develop a career, that would be a really good thing for us to do.
And where can people go to find out more?
Just come to our website. We're a tiny little team. They can drop me an email, my colleagues an email, or just give me a ring.
I'll put the website and all the details in the chat below. So thank you very much, Kath. Really, very much appreciated.
Brilliant, Dan. Great to see you. Thanks for your time.
That was Cath Bellamy, the Rail Academy. Kath, thank you for coming on and sharing your story so far, your career, and obviously your prospects with the Rail Academy as well. I think Kath addresses a very unique challenge that we face, especially from a train driver perspective. But when you look to the wider skill shortage in the industry and actually taking an approach of looking at things a bit differently through sheer passion, dedication, and effort, Obviously, Cath has got a business there now over the last 4 years, which will grow in the years to come, and has obviously been recognised to where it is today. So we obviously wish Cath all the best. But I thought that she gave some fantastic life lessons from an SME entrepreneurial perspective there, that we could all learn from. Very, very useful information there. So thank you very much, Cath. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Rail Industry Connected. You can view past and future episodes of Rail Industry Connected on YouTube, or listen to them on your way into work on Spotify. And of course, you can connect with other rail businesses and the industry on railindustryconnect.co.uk. Thank you, and see you next time.